Hey everybody, Kamish here. We're going to do things a little bit different this year in terms of the draft analysis and the preseason rankings as well as projected playoff teams. I do this every year just for fun, but Jeff and Alex actually have inspired me to try out a video version of this, which may be more entertaining to watch, and so that's what we're going to try. So let's get right into it. The plan is to analyze each team based on their draft. What are the strengths of each team and how each team could make the playoffs. So we'll dive into Team 1. We'll go in numerical order. Team 1 is Team Aaron. And I think Aaron had a very strong draft. I think he's going to be potentially very strong at running back as long as Adrian Peterson doesn't beat up his kids. And Doug Martin is the Doug Martin of 3 years ago. If you remember correctly, I believe they were both top 5 running backs. Doug Martin has had a little decline the past 2 years, but this preseason looked good, and if he stays good, this is going to be a tough team to beat. So assuming he is strong at running back, he's also strong at receiver with A.J. Green, T.Y. Hilton, and then to par that up, he has Ben Roethlisberger, who some experts argue is the number 3 quarterback behind Luck and Rodgers. So with that, he also has depth, more depth at receiver with John Brown and Steve Smith. There is some also depth at running back with Bernard and Freeman and Vereen. We'll see what happens throughout the year with those guys. But overall, strong team. I think this team will make the playoffs. But there is a chance it couldn't, and it's kind of rides along the lines of Doug Martin staying good and healthy. And other than that, I think he's going to be strong every week. So Aaron is one of my teams that I'm projecting to go to the playoffs. Looking at Team 2, it's Team Vaso, which was drafted by Sarah. This is another team that followed the philosophy of get good running backs. They have Le'Veon Bell and Mark Ingram, 2 solid starters. Randall Cobb is a question mark just due to the recent injury, but if he stays healthy, I think this is going to be a good team as well. Russell Wilson is a quarterback who, just like Roethlisberger, some experts believe is the 3rd best quarterback after Luck and Rodgers. So this team is going to have a little carousel at wide receiver 2 and flex, but assuming they get that right and their guys stay healthy, it's a solid team. No gaping holes. Team 3, which is Team Jensen, Kim and Sarah. Different strategy here, a little bit surprising, but Rodgers went overall 3rd, and he has arguably the best quarterback in fantasy football. And when you pick a quarterback in fantasy football early, what happens is you suffer at usually running back or receiver, typically running back. However, in this case, I think Kim did a good job of following that up by getting 2 good or potentially good running backs in Frank Gore and Stewart. Gore's on a new team. Stewart has a history of being injured, but I think there is potential really good strength there. And then also Blunt as your 3rd back to kind of plug in the holes where need be or even flex. So I think, obviously, quarterback really good, running back's good, but I think the weakness of this team is going to be the wide receiver. I think he did catch a break, unlike the next team, who drafted Jordy Nelson. He did draft Adams from Green Bay, which could definitely be a really, really good pickup for him and help bolster that receiving squad that's led by Sammy Watkins and Allen Robinson. So not strength in terms of preseason ranking strength in terms of the receivers, but I think this team can make the playoffs if there is solid play from the wide receivers and also that Gore maintains his Gore-like play as well as Stewart not getting hurt. If we move over to Team 4, I hate when this happens. It's Joe G, but the day after we draft, Jordy Nelson goes down and tears his ACL. It's horrible. Overall, I still think this team can overcome such an injury. I think Joe ended up drafting a really solid team. He has 2 good running backs in Lynch and Forsett, which is usually the foundation of your fantasy football team. And then his receivers were looking really nice at Nelson and Tate. Tate kind of moves up to be his 1, so he's going to have to find that second receiver or even flex. But he has a couple good running backs in Bell and Mason that he could be flexing. So if Bolden, Funches, or Hearns turns out to be good, or if you can find that hole in free agency or even potentially trading, that's the spot where the weakness of this team lies. The rest of the team, I think, is good. He has a little combo with Tate and Stafford, and I think it's going to be a solid team overall. as long as he can fill that gap at wide receiver 2, he has a chance to make the playoffs. So injuries suck no matter when it happens, especially second round guys, but I think Joji can overcome the injury and the player loss if he can find that wide receiver 2. If we move over to the next team, it's my team, Nick's team. The overall strategy here, obviously, if you look at the board, was running back, running back, running back. I think I got 3 really good running backs in terms of Charles, Hill, and Miller. Obviously, I'm not as strong at wide receiver, waiting a little bit longer, but I got Andre Johnson and Keenan Allen. Quarterback is Romo, who I seem to have been getting the past couple years. A little bit of wide receiver help with Yeldon and Aguilar, and some old guys like Colston to try to shore that up. I took a hit with Julius Thomas going down, so Eiffert's my tight end. We'll see how that works out. But overall, I'm actually very happy with my team. And I think as long as Keenan Allen and Johnson can produce top 20 numbers in terms of wide receivers, or even both of them in the top 25, I think I'll be looking pretty good. But in fantasy, you never know. Team 6, Jamie Proctor's team, started off really strong at running back. He got Eddie Lacy at 6, which is typically he's drafted before then in most standard leagues, and LaShawn McCoy in the turnaround. So I think he has a chance of having 2 really, really good starting running backs. Then he followed that up with 4 receivers, quarterback, receiver, quarterback. So after the 2 running backs, you got 5 receivers and 2 quarterbacks, which I would have liked to see another solid running back somewhere in there, but you're kind of banking it all on Lacy and McCoy. I think your starting lineup is probably one of the strongest. You are going to be weaker than other teams during your bye, and then you're more prone to be hurting yourself during if an injury does occur to, let's say, one of your running backs, then that could really hurt. But overall, I think your starting lineup is strong. So I'm going to put it in terms of making the playoffs. If your team stays healthy, you're going to make the playoffs. And as long as you can cover your bye weeks with serviceable guys. So I think the starting depth of your team is really good. And especially with Brady, I like that pick. Who knows how long he's going to be suspended. It's going to come out in a couple days, but he could be very, very solid for you as well. The last time they got in trouble with the law/cheating, they tore it up and went 16-0. Brady threw 50-plus touchdowns and just tore up the league. So something to look forward to. Team 7, Team Alex. Team Denver started with C.J. Anderson, got Manning in the 3rd round. Beckham fell to him pretty late. I think that's good value at Beckham. And then you have a couple running backs to fill that RB2 spot with Randall and Hyde. And then you also have some good receivers for the number 2 spot, Landry, Fitzgerald, Wallace, and Wright. You can kind of figure out who they are. It might be a carousel there in terms of your receivers. But overall, I think it's a very strong team. I think that you have good depth at receiver, and then you also have depth at running back. I personally am just not sold on Denver. So if Denver plays the way they've played the past couple of years, I think your team's going to be very solid. If Denver has some problems, then your team might have some problems because your main 2 scorers, potentially, maybe not counting Beckham, are going to be from Denver. So I think it kind of relies on, obviously, injuries, the thing I've been saying for everybody, but it's a reality in fantasy football. Ask Joe G, he already knows. But I think your success of your team ties to how well Denver does. And you're going to be able to cover bye weeks, but overall, I think that's what it's going to come down to. Move along to Team 8, which is Team David. David's team is, again, pretty young. He likes drafting the rookies, which is fine. And he started off getting what could be the best quarterback in fantasy football, Andrew Luck. So he had similar theory as Kim did. And went young again, followed up with Alshon Jeffrey, Gordon from San Diego, Cooper, Olsen, Bryant, Floyd, Torrey Smith, just for Matt, and so on. The initial thought of this team is, I really like the quarterback. I think you have good strength at wide receiver, but you have an unproven rookie as your RB1, and then your second running back is Denard Robinson. I think that could be very scary. So that is where the weakness lies here. I think if you can find, based on what you have here, whether it be Gray, Robinson, or someone off the waiver wire to fill in that RB2 spot, you can cover your flexes with receivers, and luck could potentially carry 2 wins as well. So I think overall the team is going to be hit or miss some weeks because it's not going to be consistent. Luck will carry some weeks, but overall, in order to make the playoffs, you will have to find more steady production from RB2, and also hope that Gordon does have a good year and it's not a committee there. Pick number 9, Dustin. Dustin went with Antonio Brown, first wide receiver taken off the board, followed up with 2 solid backs, DeMarco Murray and Morris, got Graham in round 4, which seems to be good value, and then backed up his running backs and receivers. Typically, it's a very strong draft style. I think Dustin's team is very good. He can actually cover the flex position strongly with a receiver or a running back, and has a very good tight end. At least he was in New Orleans, but we'll see what happens in Seattle. I was following him in preseason, and he has gotten quite a bit of targets. So if that is the case, that could be very good for Dustin. Overall, I think this is a very strong team. There's no glaring weakness in the team. However, there's a lot of question marks about individual players. Is Brown going to be the number 1 guy? Is Alfred Morris going to play well when this preseason that offensive line and that offense in general looked horrible? How much time is Murray going to split with Matthews or Sproles or any of the other guys there? Gurley, what's going on with him? He's been kind of in a committee type battle. So, I mean, if they play similar to how they played the past couple of years, super, super strong team. But a lot of guys in a lot of new situations. So those are the question marks. How are these individually guys that have been proven great in the past going to play under these new circumstances? So that's the thing to look out for Dustin's team, is taking a risk of guys in new situations. If they pan out good, he'll make the playoffs. If not, there's a chance he could not. Team 10, Matthew. Different draft strategy, almost like a 0 RB strategy, at least in the first 4 rounds. You're going to get Calvin Johnson round 2, Gronk, the best tight end, arguably, pretty much by everybody, with your second pick, and then some strong wide receivers in Mike Evans and Matthews from Philly, and then you're going to try to find your running back. I think this strategy could pan out if you do find those running backs, and you did a good job of understanding that you did not get your running backs early, so now you need to stock up and try to find your running backs. And he did that with Ivory, Foster, Ryan Matthews, McFadden, Sankey, and Boom, Heron. So the idea here is banking on a couple or 1 or 2 of these guys to really stand out, and then already having the rest of your team pretty strong. So I like the strategy in terms of it's a high risk, high reward, but there is risk, which in terms of a week-to-week basis, especially if that takes time to develop that second running back, it could really hurt Matt based on that draft strategy. So I think Matt could definitely make the playoffs, but these guys need to develop into that RB1 and RB2, or even 2 RB2s or an RB2.5 for his running backs in order to be successful. Also, when you're questionable at the running back position, starting the buys could be a little bit scary too, or again, if somebody gets hurt. But as long as he can find that running back in 1 and 2, he will make the playoffs. But if not, he's going to have a hard battle each week. Pick 11, Jason. Jason went for the early combo. He took Forte to nobody's surprise, which turned out to be the really right move, even over Adrian Peterson last year, which a lot of people gave him shit about. But then he laughed in their face after Adrian Peterson had his legal problems, let's just say. But followed it up with 2 really good young receivers, Thomas and Cooks. He has the combo with Breeze. If they're throwing a lot, there's going to be a lot of points scored there. He's a big fan of Kelsey. RB2, Spiller, not sure I love it. That's the weakness of this team. He did do a good job, kind of like Matt, in terms of trying to solidify that RB2. He has Coleman. He has Blue. and then also Monte Ball to try to find that RB2 as time goes along, because he's strong at tight ends, strong at receivers, strong at quarterback, and as long as he could find that tight end too. So I think even though they obviously didn't draft the same guys or the same type of players in each round, Matt and Jason's team are left with finding that RB2 or the serviceable guy. And if he can do that, he'll make the playoffs. But if he doesn't, he's going to have a hard time, especially during the bye weeks. And then finally, the last team is Jeff, which, believe it or not, is a similar strategy from Matt and Jason almost, where he gets two awesome receivers early, Des Bryant and Julio Jones, and he then tries to find his RB1 and 2, but he actually did a little bit sooner than Jason and Matt did. Jason, of course, got Forte in round 1, but Jeff went RB, RB, RB in rounds 3, 4, and 5, and then even in 9 and 10 and 13 and 14. So he's looking at 7 running backs on his roster because he understood that, okay, I'm going to be strong at receiver, I'm going to be strong at quarterback, got Matt Ryan, Bennett, who's probably going to be a top 5 tight end, and then I need to find those running backs, and he has Ellington, Murray, Abdullah, Crowell, Duke Johnson, Helu, and Bush. So he's banking again that he's going to have that 1-2 guy for the running back position. I think out of the last 3 teams that we went over, obviously Forte is the best running back of the bunch, but in terms of the team that would actually have the best running backs, potentially the best running backs overall, it would be Jeff's team. So in terms of the strategy, I think Jeff's team is the strongest in that aspect. So I think Jeff's team can make the playoffs as long as he does find the RB1 and 2. And as long as these guys are serviceable, I think he's going to have weeks where Des Bryant and Julio Jones carries him to a win. But overall, I think it's a very strong team and another one that I feel is going to make the playoffs. So with that all said, I think it's going to come down to the 6 teams in my preseason rankings. Again, just for fun, I'm not a mind reader and I'm wrong half the time. But if I had to pick 6 teams that were going to the playoffs, I would pick Aaron's team, Jeff's team, Dustin's team, my team, Alex's team, and Proctor's team, assuming nobody gets hurt. So those are my pick. Aaron, Nick, Proctor, Alex, Dustin, and Jeff are my 6 playoff teams. Hope you enjoyed watching this. I hope it was fun. If you guys like the videos, maybe I'll do this on a weekly basis for my preseason predictions. And I wish everybody good luck and enjoy the season and have fun. All right.